biohacking. To me, biohacking is no different than a computer. You have Control-Alt-Delete, and you have applications in the background that are taking up energy and resources. Some of them, they might not have any symptoms, but they're there, and they're robbing you. So, how do we go about this? Well, you need to look for infections, whether that's viral, bacterial, fungal, or parasitic. Eliminate them, eradicate them. We need to look for dysbiosis. We have to look for leaky gut, heal the leaky gut, get rid of the dysbiosis. Optimize nutrition, whether that's which includes micro and macro nutrients, minerals, enzymes, hormones. We want to optimize circadian rhythm. Biohacking is not about just technology. It's about the foundation, which is how much light exposure are you getting? How much sleep are you getting? What time are you going to sleep? Are you going to sleep and waking up at the same time every day? When you maximize everything, kind of like a brand new computer runs excellent. There's nothing in the background robbing you of resources and energy. You see it in your body in every aspect, at the cellular and molecular level. And there is a saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. I can attest to this. I am my own experiment, and I've been experimenting with myself for a year and a half now. I've done elimination diet, gold standard. I cook my own meals. I've taken functional labs, a GI map, and an organic acid test. I saw I had dysbiosis. I addressed that with many different herbs and protocols that I made. And I saw how the body reacted. I saw I was extremely deficient in vitamin C after supplementing it for about anywhere between 3 to 7,000 units daily. On the third day, I got extremely sick. Hence, my immune system went into overdrive and took care of everything really fast. And so, by doing so, it released a ton of free radicals, endotoxins, inflammatory molecules. I mean, all the die-off, basically. I had a major Hertz reaction. For 4 days, it was hell on earth. It was mostly at nighttime, but I felt hot and cold. I was sweating so much. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I have to change. I was sleeping on the ground for those 4 days because I was sweating so much profusely. I was waking up anywhere between 8 to 15 times a night. Just wake up, turn, and go back to sleep. It was hell on earth. The sickest I've ever been. I knew what was going on. I was using all kinds of herbs, oregano, garlic, Ivor. I mean, I threw everything. I even, used nasal cleanses because of strep, and I believe Pseudomonas can inhabit the nasal cavities as well. And so I addressed everything, and I was using a neti pot with xylitol, which is a biofilm booster. And boy, did I see a bunch of green and yellow stuff come out. I was also using something called Argentine 23 and X-Clear Rescue, which has a bunch of different herbs in there, like oregano, tea tree oil, and this was a combination that I was doing on myself while I was extremely sick. I was also, in that time period, I was jumping into the sauna, using my own, pushing my body to have like a fever-like effect, and then I would go straight into a cold shower. I mean, I blasted my body hard to try to get my own immune system to go after these things. It's probably why I felt so bad too, but at the same time, my own immune system took care of everything. After those, lasted about a week and a half, 4 days of hell. After that week and a half, that's when I started to feel much, much, much better. But it's like an onion. It has layers. And little by little, I started to feel much, much better. I had a new baseline. I started to have more energy, more mood stabilization, better GI response, but something was still off. Little by little, it was my birthday, I bought 4 different books: Excitotoxins, Brain Allergies, The Gut-Mind Connection, and one other book. It was like divine intervention, giving me all the answers I needed. With excitotoxins, turns out my protein shake was poisoning me. I had natural flavors, which aren't so natural. They're derived from, yes, fruits, herbs, animal products, plant-based, but they're extracted, isolated, and chemically changed to enhance flavoring. And in the end, it can trigger a lot of neuronal excitement through the glutamate receptors, and it was causing tension on the right side of my whole body. As soon as I got rid of it, I started to see the difference. It took about 4 days to start noticing the difference. So I got rid of that, and then I got rid of anything that had natural flavorings in there. But I also learned through that book that the glutamate receptors are can be a big problem for many people, especially since if you've dealt with mold like I did. I dealt with mold toxicity, and that makes you already susceptible. And if you have an HLA-DRG mutation or variant, that also means that you're much more sensitive. And if you're on the spectrum, and you have any psychological, neurological dysfunction or behaviors, you have to watch out for these things, especially dyes. Dyes is another one. Apparently I was severely anemic. This was after I got rid of the glutamate, because of that glutamate plus the food intolerances. Like, I didn't notice I was having glazed pizza, which is gluten-free, but there's other things in there that I was allergic or sensitive to. For some reason, I didn't think about it till recently, and it was eggs. I'm allergic to eggs, and I think there's soy in there too. And soy as well, I don't do good with any of them. Wheat, dairy, corn, soy, eggs, and avocados out of the list. So, sorry, I'm bouncing everywhere, but little by little, these are the things that you start to notice. And kind of like going back to the biohacking, every little small micro or macro decision that you make shapes your reality. So it's about eliminating every little thing that causes resistance in your body, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, internal or external. And you start, really taking control of your body. You fix your gut, deficiencies, infections, environmental toxins, internal or external, and you really start to maximize your full potential and start to gain control and traction of who you are, and it allows you to actually be the very best version of yourself. It's hard. It really is hard. But going back to the severe iron anemia, these things damage your villi, just like anything that triggers your immune system. Any food that you don't tolerate or are sensitive to destroys your villi, whether you have celiac or not. And so I didn't have a ferritin store at all of iron, and I wasn't absorbing it at all because I wasn't circulating in the blood. Well, after eliminating the glazed pizza, which was about the only thing that I would eat out for, and the protein shake, that's when I started to notice a difference, that I was in the right directions, because the bloody stools subsided. I went from drops to just touches on the toilet paper, to completely gone. And I brought in BPC 157. I used the delayed enteric capsules so they can target the small intestine and the rest of the GI, including the large intestine and colon. But I also would open them up and target the stomach and the stomach lining. So I would use both. I saw that's the only thing I did. Although for 3 days I used the iron that was supplemented to me by my VA doctor, and I had dyes, and I didn't like it. I absolutely from the get-go didn't like it. But I said, let's try it. Instant bloody stools. Mental brain fog. I was feeling anxiety. I can tell that my hydrochloric acids were down because I started to see undigested food in my stool, and I went from perfect stools to that in a matter of days. Well, as soon as I cut it out, it took about a month, and about 6 weeks later when I did my labs again, I was barely iron deficient. Without taking iron supplements or any other enzymes, my GI doctor looked at me like, what did I do? Well, I told him what I did. Find and eliminate all your food sensitivities and food allergies, or intolerances as well. And I use peptides, BPC-157. I also use KPV, which help the immune system regulate itself to bring down an overactive immune system, especially from all these foods. But also, thymogen alpha-1 is another one that I used in conjunction, super antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, and helps regulate the immune system as well. So I use this combination. That's the only thing I did. And I eat very healthy. I eat either steak, ground beef, or chicken, and I eat lots of leafy greens, microgreens, leafy greens like iceberg lettuce or romaine. Sometimes I choose one week and one the other. And I also make sure I hit my essential fatty acids daily. I do supplement with cod liver oil and lots of extra virgin olive oil on all my food. I use different herbs like black pepper, turmeric, Italian seasoning, which has like thyme, rosemary, and a few other herbs. I use chili powder. Keep it simple. I don't do good with garlic. I notice that it causes bloating, whether that's a histamine or an intolerance. I eliminated it as well because, again, I want to eliminate anything that causes any kind of resistance in the body, small or big. Well, yeah, after 6 weeks, I decided to get my own iron biglycinate, which has no dye, it's just iron. And alongside vitamin C, which I was already taking anyways, but I would take them together and at least 2 hours away from any food or coffee or anything, so I can have maximum absorption. I can definitely tell the difference. Within a week, I can tell the difference that I can breathe and I feel like I can gain the oxygen and like I'm actually filling up with oxygen as opposed to filling all the way and I still feel like I'm not breathing in. This is the difference that I felt. Very different from mold toxicity, where mold toxicity I felt like I couldn't inflate my lungs only halfway. Very weird. I dealt with SIRS and mast cell activation and a whole tons of inflammation from mold toxicity, but very different. And then I started incorporating liver enzymes. Liver enzymes are great. They got copper, CoQ10, B12, and a ton of other things that help balance that iron, because you kind of have to be careful sometimes when you take iron supplements because of the copper. If you're not eating correctly or not supplementing, you can have an imbalance for a short period of time. Something to just keep in mind and aware. So I'm curious to see 6 weeks later. It's coming up. We're about to do some labs and I will be back up here showing you guys. But yeah, interesting. GI doctor wanted to do an endoconoscopy. I mentioned that if they go in and the villi have been repaired because of everything I've been doing, you're gonna get a false negative. She agreed. I said, so why don't we go and do genetic testing? If you see that I don't have celiac disease, then it's impossible for me to have celiac disease if you don't see it in your genetics. But you can still damage your villi from multiple ways, including mold, but foods and infections and a whole other things. But at the same time, if you do have celiac disease, well then that confirms it. Then you could have celiac disease, although you can have it but inactive, basically dormant. Just because you have the genetic doesn't mean that you're gonna be exposed to it, kind of like Alzheimer's or breast cancer. There needs to be epigenetic expression. Considering that I dealt with mold toxicity, and mold toxicity is one of the worst things you can deal with, and they do trigger epigenetic changes at the DNA and cellular level. And considering all the tons of inflammation and damage that was going on in my GI and mental and all over my body, there's a high possibility that a lot of my epigenetic expressions were already expressing themselves. Yeah, I don't do good with gluten anyways. So this is my story so far. Hopefully I'll be back on here and hopefully it resonates with someone, a lot of people. Comment questions, concerns, post them, email me at dynamicbiohacking.com, at gmail.com. And we'll see in the next couple days how I speak, my energy, how I look, whether that's my hair, my nails, they change as these cytokines. It's only been 3 days since I had that avocado, and I don't feel thriving or optimized yet. So we'll see. You'll see the difference. This is dynamic biohacking.